The silent way is the name of a method of language teaching devised by Capcut. It is based on the idea that teachers should be as silent as possible during a class, but learners should be encouraged to speak as much as possible. The eastwise assumes that learners work with resources and nothing else, as they are solely responsible for what they learn. Teaching should be subordinated to learning. Silence make students concentrate on what is to be learned. There are three basic principles of SY. First is learners needs to discover or create. Second, learners is made easier by the use of physical objects such as questionnaire road. Third, learning is made easier by problem solving using target language. The objectives of SY. General objectives is to give beginning level students oral and oral facility in basic elements of target language. Near native fluency in the target language. The teacher facilitates the students and help the students gain insight into the functioning of the language. Learners' autonomy and independence. And learners could be able to correctly and easily answer the question about themselves, speak with a good accent, and perform adequately in following areas like speaking, grammar, reading comprehension, and writing. The theory of the silent way method. Theory language is seen as a group of sounds arbitrarily associated with specific meanings and organized into sentences or strings of meaningful units by grammar rules. Language is separated from its social context and through artificial situations usually represented by roads. Gatek views language itself as a substitute for experience, so experience is what gives meaning to language. Theory of the learning. Gatek recommends that the learners need to return to the states of mind that characterize a baby learning. The artificial approach that Gatek proposed is based on the principle that successful learning involves commitment of the self to language acquisition through the use of the silent awareness.
Okay, the next is teacher's roles. There are three types in the teacher roles. The first is technical or an engineer who facilitates learning or neutral observer. And number two, silently monitors, like a learner instruction with each other. And the teacher uses gesture, chart, and manipulates in order to elicit and shape student response. And the last is teach, task, get out of the way. Okay, in the learner's roles, there are four. And the first learner are expected to develop independence, autonomy, and responsibility. And number two is the absent of a correction and modeling requires students to develop inner criteria and to correct themselves. Number three, learner will work collectively rather than competitively. And the last is, a learner should be a teacher, a problem solver, and a self-evaluate. Okay, the next is the role of instructional materials. The first is materials are used to illustrate the relationship between our sound and the meaning of language target. Number two, the material we design for manipulation by the student and teacher independently and cooperatively, and promoting language learning by direct association. And the number three is the number of language learning and content symbols in the target language for all of the vowel and consonant sounds of the language. And the last is the symbols are color code according to the pronunciation. It makes make a language process to different symbols for the same sound, and it will make a color it alike. Okay, the next is the role of instructional materials. There are four. The first is the material are used to illustrate the relationship between the sound or the meaning in the target language. And number two, the material are designed for manipulation by the student and the teacher independently and cooperatively in promoting language learning by direct association. And number 3, the number of language and content symbols in the target language for all of the vowel and consonant sounds of the language. And the last is the symbols are color code according to pronunciation. Those if a language proposes for different symbols for the same sound, they will be like coloring alike. And you could see on the on the slide there are 5 pedagogical material. For the example is a word chart. The video does show all the possible spelling for each eponym, and which also use the same color code as the rectangle chart. And then questionnaire rows are used to create clear and visible situation that enable students to understand how a given concept is expressed in the language. And the 4 is the sound or color rectangle chart. And number 5 is like other materials such as books, worksheet for practicing reading or writing skill. Okay, and the last is procedure of learning. The first part of a lesson focus on pronunciation, and if a response is incorrect, the teacher will attempt to reserve the utterance or have another student present to correct model. And the last is after practice, with the sound of language, sentence pattern, structure, and vocabulary are practiced.
The silent Y method, the advantages. Learning the track problem solving looks attractive, especially because it's faster. Creativity, discovery, increase intelligence potency, and long-term memory. The indirect rule of the teacher highlights the importance and the certainty of the learner, who is the responsible in figuring out the testing the hypothesis about how language works. In other words, teaching is subordinated to learning. And disadvantages about the silent Y method is, the first is the learner works in isolation, communication is lacking badly in a silent Y classroom. And the second, with minimum help on the part of the teacher, the silent Y method might put the learning itself at stake. And the material of the route the cards use this method will certainly while introduce all aspects of language. Other materials will have to be introduced. The silent Y method. The conclusion of the silent Y method is, first, the actual practice of the silent Y are much less revolutionary than might be expected. And the second, working from what is rather traditional structural and the lexical symbols, the method exemplifies many of the features that characterize more traditional methods, such as the situational language teaching and audio linguistics, with a strong focus on accurate repetition sentence models initially by the teacher and the movement through guided education exercise to further communication. TPR is method developed by Dr. James G.S.R. 1977, a professor of psychology at San Jose State University of California. Arsad developed TPR as a result of this experience, observing your children learning their first language. He noted that interaction between parents and children often took the form of speech from the parent, followed by a physical response from the child. Arsad made 3 hypotheses based on the observation. First, that language is learned primarily by listening. And second, the language learning must engage the right hemisphere of the brain. And the third, the learning language should not involve any stress. Dr. James G.S.R. Okay, that's all about me. The last.
Total Physical Response (TPR) is language teaching method built around the coordination of speech and action. It attempts to teach language through physical activity. Instruction gives commands to students in the target language, and students respond with full body action. Total physical response is often used alongside other methods and techniques. It is popular with beginners and with young learners, although it can be used with students of all levels and all age. Characteristic TPR. First, coordination, speech, and action, namely how we say and act in learning. Second, students act as listener and player, that is, participate and be active in classroom. Third, learners monitor and evaluate their own progress, can understand it. Fourth, reading and writing are taught after grammar and vocabulary. Last, grammar and vocabulary are selected according to the situation from your teacher and student are motivator. To ensure students must be more active and speak actively in the classroom. The next basic principle TPR, students' language or further language rapidly by moving their bodies. Interactive are powerful linguistic device through which the teacher can direct students' behavior. Students can learn through observing action as well as by performing the action themselves. The first, listening ability and vocabulary must be developed first. Two, there must not be any stress in the class. Second, regular repetition to action verb and the score of TPR. And TPR also techniques of teaching in the vocabulary. And then, not forcing but exploit the students' errors for exposing other structure points. And the last, to expose to use in natural language to create an English community in the classroom. And the more often we trace memory and the more intensively should we repeat, the stronger the memory association are and the more likely it will be recalled. Thank you.
Application of TPR, reading, predicting skill, and reading. Next advantage of TPR, it's fun, easy, and memorable. It's a good tool for building vocabulary. It can facilitate students with the meaning in real context. Then, it doesn't require a great deal of preparation. Next, help the students immediately understand the target language. TPR is inclusive and works well a class with mixed ability levels. Help learners achieve fluency faster in a learning language. It benefits the struggling students. Disadvantages of TPR. Students are not generally given the opportunity to express their own thought in the creative way. It can be challenging for shy students. It's not very creative method. Overusing TPR causes someone easily bored. Certain target languages may not be suited to this method. It's limited since everything cannot be explained with this method. The differences between traditional method and TPR method. Traditional method, teacher-centered, mean the teacher controls the class and the student is passive and depending on the teacher. Too much spoon feeding means the material explanation only from the teacher. And next, active learning by the students. And then non-communicative, of course, because only teacher that control the class. Plurally communication. Neglect students' creativity and stress on student creativity. Then TPR method, student-centered, active learning, non-communicative, because in this method, student is the center. Next, blurry communicative, neglect students' creativity, stress on student creativity, and output is more than input, must be used as best creativity. After the explanation from my friends, the conclusion is total physical response or TPR is one of the teaching methods that emphasize active learning through actions. It means that learners speaking skill through listening to their teacher and before requiring them to speak and asking them to practice using verbal communication accompanied by physical actions. Three basic steps that used in this method are to listen, watch, and imitate repeatedly. Okay, that's all. Thank you everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Cold.
Very good, okay? Cold.
Cold.
Very nice. Do it again. Cold.
Cold.
Very good, okay? Last one. Sleepy.
Sleepy.
Excellent. Okay, now let's do it again. Sleepy.
Sleepy.
Very good. Okay, so now I will say the word. You do the action, okay? Okay. Hot. Very good. Cold. Very nice. Sleepy. Okay, now let's do it again, okay? Listen carefully. Sleepy. Hot. Cold. Very good. This time, I do the action. You say the word, okay? Very good. Hot, hot. Excellent. Is this one? Yes, correct. Okay, now what about this one?
Sleepy.
Sleepy. Is it this one? No. So which one? Is this one? Excellent, Patrick. Say sleepy.
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 Okay, last one.
Cold.
Very good. Is this the one? No. Is it this one? Yes. Say
Cold.
cold. Excellent, Patrick. Very good. Now let's review 3 words, okay? Okay, do with me. Hot.
Hot.
Very good. Cold.
Cold.